The global community has not faced as perilous a moment since perhaps the Cold War. For more on a chapter whose ending we won't know for some time, I'm joined by NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. The world is seeing three very different examples of presidential power, Michael, between Presidents Putin, Zelensky, and Biden. Can you frame this moment as a test of leadership?
It is a test of leadership. And, you know, you and I, Lester, both on air and off air, have talked about the fact that one of the big questions of world history is, are events like this caused by great historical forces, or are they caused by personalities? Who happens to be the leader? And I think what we're seeing tonight is something that is a very clear example of category number two. If you didn't have these three personalities, Putin, Zelensky, and I would also say Joe Biden, we would have a very different situation. Look at the Cold War, post-Cold War leaders of Russia. Mikhail Gorbachev, who ended the Cold War, and then Boris Yeltsin, Vladimir Putin. Gorbachev and Yeltsin wouldn't have in a million years been doing what Putin is doing, brutally invading a neighboring country, indifferent to the possibility that he is subjecting the entire world, all of us, to the possibility of nuclear war. That's just because of the bad luck that all of us have had, that Putin happens to be the leader of Russia. And then Zelensky. You know, what would the odds have been if you and I were talking a few weeks ago? What would we have done if we were asked, what would Zelensky be like under this kind of pressure? His life is threatened every single hour. He leads a country that is facing enormous odds, very much like Winston Churchill under the Blitz from Nazi Germans in 1940. And I would also say Joe Biden. Here is someone who's taken a lot of risks, not just higher gas prices, but taking a very strong stand for the Ukrainians, short of war, but doing almost everything else. A lot of people who might be president this year would not have done that.
And today, President Biden, we saw him move to ban Russian oil imports. President Nixon faced crippling gas shortages in the 70s. You saw the long lines at gas stations,
Sure.
Cars running on empty. Nixon expanded exploration, but he also told Americans during an address, in the short run, we must use less energy. That means less heat, less electricity, less gasoline. President Biden can't afford to give a similar message at this moment, can he?
He actually can afford it, he thinks. And that's the mark of a courageous leader, because I guarantee you, and I think you would think this too, Lester, his political advisors probably said, this is the year of a midterm election. You have said you want to run for president again in 2 years. And you're going to make yourself extremely unpopular if people are in gas lines as they were under Nixon in 1973 and 1974. What Biden has done is said to Americans, no one wants to see an energy crisis, but America still stands for freedom, and we wouldn't be Americans if we did not stick up for the underdog and the freedom fighters in Ukraine.
Today marked the anniversary of the first Marines' arrival in Vietnam back in '65. At the moment, 7,000 more American personnel are on their way to NATO installations in Europe. How has the pressure on American presidents to use the military evolved?
Well, at the time of Lyndon Johnson going deeply in Vietnam on this day in 1965, we were a much less isolationist country. Americans were willing to make a military commitment. And if you and I were talking 2 weeks ago, I would have been, and I think you might have been, not certain how Americans would react to an attack on Ukraine. Look what we've learned in the last week. This is still a country in love with freedom.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.